Well, hello there and welcome back to EU4 Expert Tutorials. Last week we talked about how to avoid coalitions from forming, as well as the grand strategy behind aggressive expansion accumulation in a world conquest. This week we'll discuss how to deal with existing coalitions. Now this tutorial was made in the 1.19.2 Denmark patch. So for whatever reason, a coalition formed and you want to manage its effects. Now your primary and number one goal should be to prevent the coalition from declaring a punitive war. And here's why. The AI will only declare this war if it thinks it can win, which it largely determines by your and your allies' army strength. A calculation based on troop numbers and tech level. Now if you're in a big war, it will take the fact that you're fighting other enemies into account, so be more inclined to declare the war. Now given that the AI will only declare this war if it thinks it can win, punitive wars usually end up being pretty massive. There's going to be huge, strong enemy armies that seem to relentlessly attack you until you're willing to accept the peace deal in which they reduce your massive empire to the size of Ulm. Aside from that, you can't just wipe peace out after a few years because of this fancy modifier. Plus 30 war enthusiasm, coalition war. Now this seemingly drug-induced willingness to fight is incredibly annoying. Plus 30 is huge. It basically allows the AI to ignore war exhaustion, length of war, and the fact that half their country is being occupied. It's like they have a minister of propaganda shouting, "Wollt ihr den totalen Krieg?" Now in order to prevent these maniacs from ever declaring, you'll need to make sure to 1. Have a very big army, be on the force limit, and 2. You'll want to get big allies. Now what you can do is just open up the ledger, sort by total, try to ally the biggest power, and work your way down until you've got no more diplomatic relations. Now this works like a charm on normal. On very hard, it's a little bit more difficult, so you're probably just gonna want to ally whatever you can get, right? And the third thing you can do is you can try to, whenever possible, kick coalition members out of the coalition, so as to weaken the coalition itself and thereby lowering the chances of them declaring the war. Which brings me to my next segment, shrinking and ultimately collapsing the coalition. Now, in order to kick members out of the coalition, you can do 2 things. 1, you could declare war on an ally of a coalition member, since, as you may or may not remember from last week, countries that you have a truce with can't be part of the coalition, and as such will be kicked out the moment you peace out. The second thing you can do is use threaten war. This will not only give you a 5-year truce with the bullied nation and kick them out, but will also net you a nice province. However, it can be a little difficult to do this, as relative strength of coalition is a separate modifier which applies even to countries that aren't part of the coalition yet. Even if they by no means can or want to join a coalition, it will still get applied if a coalition exists. However, it can be very much worth it to temporarily go way over the force limit and to tech way ahead in military tech, as it will probably save you quite a bit of money if it prevents a coalition war. It's also imperative that you pick a low development province to demand. Just get a claim on like a 3 development province or something. Because you're just looking for a truce here, not some fancy 50 development center of trade. You just want small province and get a truce, right? The relative value of the province can be a really big modifier, and every point counts. The bigger the coalition is, the more it matters that you pick a small province. Because you'll need like 20,000 extra men to move the relative strength of coalition down by like 1 point, right? So pick a low development province. Now this tactic has the potential to start a sort of domino effect, where if you kick out one big member, it will cause the coalition to recalculate its strength versus you. And if you're strong enough, the entire coalition can just dissolve. They'll all just leave. It's truly one of those epic and glorious moments we all know and love in the EU4. That's all well and good. However, the penultimate coalition collapsing trick, or PUCT for short, is this. If you declare war on an ally of a coalition member and set that coalition member as a co-belligerent, it won't set them as a co-belligerent. What it will do, however, is call in the entire coalition with every single member being separate peaceable as non-co-belligerents. So you can separate peace everyone and they won't get the plus 30 war enthusiasm. Now the sheer power this move has is immense. Imagine, if you will, the entire HRE in a coalition against you, something I'm sure it doesn't need a whole lot of imagination. You can use this trick, and now since most of the HRE is comprised of tiny states that are all full annexable even as non-co-belligerents, you could annex all of Germany in one big war. Now there is a slight catch. This would result in literally every single state in the religious group that you apply this on to, if they haven't already, join the coalition. So it really is best suited for a in for a penny, in for a pound sort of situation where you plan to world conquest or completely eradicate that culture group. It also costs a lot of diplomatic points to pull off, considering they're all non-co-belligerents and you haven't declared for that war. If you were to full annex all of those, you'd have to pay the unjustified demands penalty. Now, it's only bird mana, so nobody really cares. However, if you want to like culture convert or something, or you want to save up your diplo points, you should probably take influence ideas for the negative 50% unjustified demands. Now, you could also use this trick to just reset all of your truces with the coalition and reinstitute a new truce juggling system like we discussed last week. So you get new truces with everyone, you can completely measure what their truce with the countries is going to be. You could peace someone out for 50 war score, somebody else you want to truce with within 5 years, so you'll white peace them, and somebody you want them to leave you alone for 15 years, and then you just, you know, 100% them, right? You can set up a new truce juggling system. So now let's talk about worst case scenarios. What to do when all else fails and the coalition declares a punitive war. Now, the aforementioned tricks and tips will work wonders, and theoretically the things I told you about could prevent coalitions from even forming, declaring, and can make them collapse. In practice, however, you will probably get a punitive war shoved in your face. Now, since fighting defensive wars, and especially punitive wars, is a complete waste of time from a world conquest perspective, you'll want to peace out ASAP. Now, there's basically two things you can do. First of all, you could choose to fight the war and defend yourself. Now, if you recall, the country that starts the war gets a magical plus 30 war enthusiasm, making it very difficult to peace out a coalition. However, they lose the coalition war plus 30 war enthusiasm if you get 51 or more war score, often instantly kicking them to low war enthusiasm, leading to pretty funny situations where they'll want your empire dismantled, your family executed, your people enslaved, and your dog at 49 war score, whilst happily surrendering half their land 2 war score later at 51. So you should rush to 51% war score if you choose to fight, right? Now you can get 40% war score from battles, which if you win those, you'll also get 25% from ticking war score for showing superiority. And what's also important to note is that if you siege down the capitals of coalition members, that's going to give you a sizable boost in war score. However, this can still take a year or two and buckets of ducats to achieve, which, especially late game, can really hurt your chances in your blobbing campaign. So another thing you can do is just peace out instantly. Now you can offer to give away your allies' land immediately if they own cores on one of the members of the coalition that joined the war. So let's just pretend that France is my ally here and they conquered those Aragonese provinces, and since Aragon joined the punitive war, I'd instantly be able to give back the Aragonese provinces. And this would cost the coalition a lot of war score, as my allies are not considered co-belligerents, and as such, all of their provinces are twice as expensive. Now you can also give away your allies' land if they own cores of countries that haven't joined the coalition war, if those provinces get sieged down. So in this situation, if Orléans would get sieged down, and once again, let's just pretend that this is my ally. If Orléans gets sieged down, the button to return Orléans to France would appear, and I could just give this away for 11 times 2, 22 war score. Lastly, you can offer that your allies release countries if all of the cores of the releasable country are sieged down. So if, let's suppose this is France, and France is my ally. If Vermandois, Champagne, and Nemours get sieged down, I would be able to offer that France release Champagne for, well, a ridiculous amount of war score. Now you can also offer to release your own land, preferably land belonging to your vassals or your primary cultured full cores, since you won't lose your cores on those, and technically you don't lose monarch points for giving that away. Now this will also give you some revanchism, which I suppose is nice, and if you're playing as the Ottomans, this could be useful, since there's lots of Turkish miners that you can release, and that nobody else can touch, so you can just reconquest it later. Now that also slightly reduces the aggressive expansion that you've built up, but I mean at this point you'll probably have negative 500 with half the globe anyway, so, you know, meh. However, there's one last thing you can do, which granted some people might see as an exploit, but you can just give the coalition some money. Yeah, that's right. You can just give them cold hard cash, and they'll go away. Now, in order for them to accept this, you must give exactly 100 war score worth of ducats though. And the amount of money that you need to give per war score is based on your income. So, right before you peace out, you could intentionally piss off your estates, you could fire advisors that increase your income, and, you know, intentionally misplace your merchants so you make less money from trade, and then you can hide that income from the coalition IRS, as it were, and you can easily save yourself a couple thousand ducats. Now, right now it's 17, so to peace out this coalition, I have to pay 1700 ducats because my income's not that high. However, there is a maximum amount of money one war score can cost, and that is 100 ducats. So that means 100 ducats for every war score, so that's 10,000 ducats for a 50-year truce with literally every coalition member. But Florry, that means I have 15 years of truce and can't attack anyone. Ah, now that might be true, but since you now have a get out of coalition jail free card, you can literally just truce break, since you no longer care about aggressive expansion at this point. The only price you really pay is admin points to stab up. And there are a lot of stab cost reduction modifiers. Should you prioritize your build for this, and you could bring it down to 90% for example, and as such only pay 40 admin to get back up to 1 stab. Or, as we did in the Ryuku finale, we truce broke 15 countries in 15 months, stabbing up once from -3 to -2 every time. Since you can't declare war at -3 stab, you're kind of forced to, but you know. And that resulted in 15 different separate wars for us to fight. Now you can even choose to straight up declare war on the coalition like we did in the clip that you're seeing right now, just to give them the money and to make sure the coalition disappears. And then you can, you know, truce break people. And this is really expensive, but also incredibly effective to deal with coalitions in the late game World Conquest. You can just, you know, declare war on the coalition, give them 10k, and then truce break. And that concludes this week's episode of EU4 Expert Tutorials. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to be making one of these every week, so if you don't want to miss anything, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. And let me know if there's anything I can do to improve this series. And if you have any topics where you'd like me to make tutorials on, please be sure to let me know. Click to the left of me for last week's episode on how to avoid coalitions, and to the right of me for next week's episode on how to on the patented florrynomics. Yes, that's what we're gonna do next week. Florrynomics on how to deal with bankruptcies, when and why and how to take loans, and when to debase currency. So anyway, guys, once again, thank you so much for the support for this series, and it'd be great if you shared this with your friends. You'll feel good about yourself. That's some positive karma right there. You got a positive karma cookie. Karma cookies. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and bye-bye.